welcome back. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is King Wabi, and today I am presenting to you guys a special edition of Crypto World Radio Bitcoin Edition, otherwise known as Bitcoin Talk. We have Market Talk, and now we officially have Bitcoin Talk. I want to let everybody here know in advance that out of the five spaces that I'll be hosting from Monday through Friday, at the very minimum, two of them will be Bitcoin specific. And we'll be speaking about everything in regards to the development of BTC when it pertains to things like AI, such as BitTensor, and things like Stacks, which are developing some smart contract stuff, and also the growth of the network when it pertains to miners, and also proof of sales systems such as the Lightning Network being implemented in countries like El Salvador, like Chile, like Venezuela, and Africa, etc., etc. So this is a bit more of a different take, given that because Bitcoin, we want to put some Bitcoin content out there exclusively as well on these shows. So yeah, I want to welcome you guys on once more. If you're listening to us from YouTube, please be sure to like, comment any feedback, click that subscribe button, and turn on bell notifications so that you can be consistently updated throughout the day from our daily streaming content. We have morning news with our boy Premise, who's up here as a speaker. What's going on, Premise? One of our market analysts, and we also have our boy Snorlax, who partakes in the morning show. Then after that, we have our midday update with our CEO Max, the boys from the Breakfast News, and we also have Big Dog Bandemic, who is on vacation, and hopefully he's enjoying himself there. God bless you, Bando. Have fun. And for the listeners here on Twitter Spaces, I want to thank you uh, for showing up again for your boy and coming out to show love and support. It is a holiday weekend, so we're expecting less traffic here when it comes to these spaces. So, we appreciate every single one of you coming out, giving consistent feedback. And yeah, let's get the show on the road. We're joined by a personal friend of mine, Kayvon. We're joined also by Nakamoto, who's a good friend of the show, and also Feel Pain and Vestige and Premise. And earlier today, I did host a space at about 2 p.m. Eastern Time with an individual by the name of Chris, who has a plethora of experience when it pertains to the venture capital side of things in regards to the digital asset space. So if you missed that, be sure to check it out. It's up on our playlist uh, section and our YouTube. And also be sure to check out becausebitcoin.com, where you can find all of our links. You can find our Twitter page and the link to our Discord, which has close to 900 members now. So thank you guys for showing up. If you guys haven't noticed yet, I'm very active in that Discord. You can typically find me there with Premise leading up into the weekend and the wee nights of the day. Always fun connecting with our BB Chads and other inner circle members of the community. So without further ado, I know Premise had requested these more Bitcoin exclusive spaces to be going on, and kind of pushed how you know today's a better day than ever to get the show on the road. Kind of a bit of a impromptu space. I like to be more structured with the things that I do here on Twitter now. So yeah, Premise, how are you, my man? It's good to have you here, and finally have that BTC exclusive space that you've been requesting to have with me, brother.
Yeah, man, what's up? Yeah, man, I'm sitting here chilling right now and kind of been watching the Bitcoin charts and stuff, but you had me, you kind of convinced me when we were talking like not too long ago, and I've been seeing like, all the reports of CBDCs, pilots happening around the world. And I'm someone who travels a lot, right? And so I take privacy actually very serious. I've had times where PayPal has banned my not banned, but froze my funds because I was receiving a payment actually from Max himself. Me and him were handling something, and they froze my payments there once. I've had Airbnb say my travel was suspicious. My travel activity was suspicious, and to protect me, they stopped me from being able to book Airbnbs while I was in the middle of traveling. And so, I'm someone who I've actually used products like Bitcoin on the road. I've used them in Vegas a lot for stuff. I met a barber. He took Bitcoin and he took it as payment and stuff. And so, when I see the prices of Bitcoin drop and stuff, and everyone's getting scared and stuff, I kind of find it funny because the use case of Bitcoin to me is why I'm kind of here, right? Like what it can provide for like privacy and stuff like that. Like even if it's at 5,000, I can still transact with it, right? I can still make payments with it. I can still, go somewhere enjoy myself without my bank being able to snitch on me, right? You got people coming back from Vegas getting drug tested in states where it's still illegal. And it's just kind of crazy. So when I see CBDCs, I think it's just really important that, the crypto people rise up at some point and make a stand and say, "Hey, we're committed to this Bitcoin thing here." I don't know. And yeah, so I would love to hear if anyone's like living in countries where Bitcoin's becoming legal tender. How smooth is that working? Because these are options I might start looking at one day.
Yeah, I
Well, I
agree.
think I
Go
was
ahead.
going to say,
Go ahead.
I think there's only one country where Bitcoin is legal tender, right?
Yeah, I
That's
think it
El
was just
Salvador.
El Salvador right now. All
Yeah,
right, yeah.
I,
and
I I do believe that there are some franchises in Venezuela and Chile that do accept digital asset payments. I know that the American franchises such as KFC, Burger King, and I think even Chipotle is in like the works to receive BTC. And I think now with Uber, there is some sort of mechanism that acts as a front end to pay with BTC. So it's slowly starting to happen, and I think like in some countries where you actually have the inflation print absolutely destroy all the downside that BTC has had this year. So in places where inflation is like 80%, 90% in the triple digits, the only option that people actually have is to carry BTC, given that it is a form of currency, especially by market cap. I believe like it's in the top 10 by market cap when it pertains to global currencies. And we
well,
actually.
I mean, the thing is, what I've heard is that people who actually need to transact in like Iran, they're transacting in Tether. They're not transacting in BTC.
Well, and something interesting in regards to Tether, many people aren't aware of this, is that Tether was actually created via the Omni layer of BTC. So I think there's something to be said about that. And you know, I also wanted to point out our boy Kayvon here. He's a local business owner, owns a super swell restaurant, and he himself he's trying to set up sort of like a Bitcoin payment system. So I want to welcome him on the show and introduce him to the family, to the Because Bitcoin family. Kayvon, if you want to introduce yourself, give your thoughts on BTC and how that process is like trying to set up a Bitcoin payment solution via local business. Feel free, brother. Welcome.
Hey, what's up, guys? Yeah, so I had the experience of trying to set up my own way to accept Bitcoin at my business, and the thing is there's third-party companies that are basically just like my credit card processors. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you're good. You're
They're
good. You're
basically
good. You're
yeah,
good. We can
they're
hear you.
basically just like credit card processors. So somebody comes in, swipes a card, they take a percentage, and there's companies like that that do that for Bitcoin that make it easy. But again, you don't have like anonymity, kind of everything is doxed that way. It's not like in the spirit of Bitcoin that we like to think of. Then I ran my own node. I have a little tiny device called a My Node. I think there's another one called Umbrel, and that is basically it's not a mining device. It's a node, and it has a complete copy of the Bitcoin ledger, the whole history. So now I can route payments through that using a app called BTC Pay Server. And to be honest, I haven't set it up yet. I had some trouble that an update took care of, and I'm gonna take another crack at it right now. But it looks nice, and I think there's like apps like Nunchuck, um, who offer like a wallet solution. But yeah, so far I haven't actually accepted Bitcoin payment, but now you're kind of motivating me, so I'm gonna give it another shot.
I mean, if you want to do it so that it's not doxed, some people on CT have been shilling me this other cryptocurrency, which they say is better than Bitcoin. It's called Monero, and it's completely private. So yeah, I
Yeah, the
mean,
thing.
maybe Monero is the way to go, but we're not allowed to say that because this is a Bitcoin only space. So
I mean, I know.
sorry, forget I said that. Forget I said that.
Well,
Do the Men in
Monero
Black
is a
thing.
Bitcoin fork, Naka, just so you're aware. Yeah, it was forked off of
Well,
Bitcoin a long time ago.
but it's not the same code.
No, for
because it's
sure. I
private.
mean, they use ring signatures is definitely probably the most private, like on-chain crypto that you can transact in for sure. It's just that it's not widely available, right? You can get BTC everywhere. You can transact that over Lightning. Lightning provides some privacy, as like everybody can't see your transactions. It's not completely private, right? But definitely what Kevin was saying is pretty good stuff. Another thing to look into is Zeus LN. If you do run your own node, Kevin, you can Zeus LN wallet. You can install that on your iOS device, link it with your node, and then kind of have your own sovereignty over your own node.
So, guys, do you want me to leak some very strange alpha to you? I was actually. Have you guys read the Bitcoin white paper?
I have, yeah. I have, yes.
You know who the top. If you look at the references section, you know who the top references are.
Tell us, bro.
Like, so. Let me get it. I'll give me a few seconds. I'm just gonna look this up.
No problem, no problem.
It's the Bitcoin white paper from the late 2000s. Go to the references section. Reference number 1 is B Money by Wei Dai. He's actually a friend of mine. I actually spoke to him about Bitcoin yesterday, believe it or not.
B Money?
Yeah, like the first reference in the Bitcoin white paper.
Yeah.
Right? Is something called B Money, which is a predecessor to Bitcoin from 1998. And he invented that.
Wow.
Right? I spoke to him yesterday on Facebook because he's a friend of mine.
Yeah, the interesting thing is,
Did he say where their bottom is?
There's a lot of
well, he's not that engaged with it at the moment, right? I mean, bro's got other stuff to do. He doesn't do crypto nowadays, and he said he was actually really disappointed with crypto, and he kind of thought maybe it was better if it failed because too many people are getting scammed. And I was like, wow, that's so disappointing. It was a real black pill.
If we go back and we look at the history of blockchain, we can go as late as 1991 when Stuart Haber and Scott Sternetta they basically created this cryptography of secured chain of blocks, and that was essentially the first creation of a blockchain. And then we have 1998 with Nick Szabo, right, and BitGold. So isn't it odd that 10 years after 98 you end up with Bitcoin, right? And then also in 2000, during the whole .com craze and all of that, someone by the name of Stefan Konst published a theory of that, of the secured chain of blocks, and also some early smart contract ideas. So when you have all of that being applied, and you move forward to the great financial crisis of which BTC was born, essentially Satoshi grabbed all of these ideas that were trying to be implemented, along with Hal Finney's old articles from the late 80s, early 90s, talking about digital trading cards and talking about the currency of the internet. All of those ideas were wrapped together and essentially created via BTC, right, with a fixed supply and a fixed amount to be released every block until the end of until the end of like, what is it, like 2140, like
2140.
2009. Yeah. I don't even know.
Yeah,
Don't forget
Yeah.
I
don't
actually,
forget hash cash that Adam Back invented, right? And that
yeah, he did
so
hash cash.
it's the
Yeah,
you're
Yeah.
right, Bobby. It's the combination of a lot of these things that like on their own they didn't have the resiliency, and the combination of them all is what kind of, like you said, coagulated to make Bitcoin.
yeah. I have a debate with Dylan Leclerc. He said he's going to debate me. I'm debating the long-term future of Bitcoin.
So
That it's gonna
so
break
so I
in the
think
2000 forces.
I think, dude, like for at least another market cycle or two, or more like two market cycles, because I honestly think like it's the next bear market where the system is actually going to be tested to its full extent, not so much this one, right? I think after another market cycle, I think moving forward, I think BTC is going to have more structured price movement, similar to like the S&P, maybe like a 3x S&P, because I honestly do think that it's gonna eventually make it to the top 5 when it comes to like currency evaluations, even though like structurally right now it's not meant for that high speed, high throughput sort of stuff, like, the visa systems that we have. But I do think it still will have a place as far as like a transactionary environment where big funds are involved, right? Because I mean, dude, just try wiring like 25K to somebody, and you will run into so many problems, bro. It's honestly a headache. And even with exchanges, right? Like, I got flagged off of Gemini. I think it was like 2 weeks ago, literally over a couple of payments that don't even amount to like $5,000, right? And so, like, when you have that happen, even on an exchange level, there's something to be said when it comes to ledger technology, like pure ledger technology. Because on exchanges, yeah, like on paper, it belongs to you, but it's merely a derivative off of that exchange. And I think eventually what could be developed is sort of like a Bitcoin derived DEX, right? And I believe I said this on Friday. I think the only tangible product that we have right now that can serve as a model on what to do and what not to do is things like Xenon Network, which is essentially like a proof of work technology that Bitcoin could actually improve upon, given like the current amount of devs that are willing to push
Yo,
more than
Wabi,
just. Go ahead, brother.
yo,
Go ahead.
I just kind of want to add though, for anyone who's like, and because I am kind of like with the scams and stuff, but in the end, man, Bitcoin has never crashed an entire housing market. Bitcoin has never scammed in the entire world. Like we're talking about like one or two exchanges go under. I mean, we've had Bernie Madoffs, we've had housing market crashes from greed. Lehman Brothers was like 30x, 40x leverage with people's pension fund money. So, I mean, yeah, we have some scams in this market, but it is nothing compared to what they've done to us in the stock market. They got an $80 trillion missing debt right now in the Forex market. I mean, so I do understand, like, oh, they get scammed there. It's like, okay.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, that's
scams are not just native to crypto too, right? It just, there was a Mark Rober episode about people who like basically these call centers that call old people and get them to like withdraw $20,000 and FedEx it to them, So, it definitely like poses a new threat vector when it comes to scams. But I totally agree with what you're saying, man. Like, see, you don't go blame cash because someone did something with cash, right? You're not like, oh, cash is bad because, or the cell phone analogy. It's like, oh, criminals use cell phones, therefore, like cell phones are bad. It's like there's definite upsides there that it doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
I mean, criminals use cell phones, they use cars, they use clothes, they use toothpaste. I mean, like anything that's generally useful, criminals are going to use. The thing is, um, the ability to control speech and the ability to control money are two extremely powerful things. So, I mean, to be honest, I'm kind of more excited almost about the decentralized social stuff, because I think Jack Dorsey is working on this this
Yeah,
thing called
he's
Nostr.
working on a DEX. He's essentially
Yeah,
working on a DEX that's integrated within a social network, and he's calling it Web 5. Now, you know how,
website.
like it,
Naka,
and
were
as
you
far
talking
as
about
how that's
Noster,
gonna,
the social media?
Nostr, yeah, yeah.
That's
I
pretty.
haven't used it, but
It's pretty fucking cool.
yeah. And there's also there's been a little bit of excitement about this Impervious browser, which also has, quite interestingly, you can do like identity on Impervious apparently, kind of like the ENS names on Ethereum. So there are some things happening on Bitcoin. It's certainly exciting. I mean, I do think that it's a bit weird, right? Because I've been digging into the technical side of Bitcoin recently because I have, as I said, a debate with Dylan on the long-term future. And, you know, there are some things that are really fucked up technically about Bitcoin when you dig into it, right? Like everyone, so here's the thing I'm debating, right? Everyone seems to think that in the future, you know, Bitcoin is going to pay for security with fees, right? Like people are going to pay fees to do sends and receives, and that's going to pay for the security. And if that doesn't happen, you know, as the block reward goes to zero with every halving, the network's going to be insecure. It's going to get 51%ed, or it's going to get vandalized, or something bad's going to happen to it. But here's the weird thing, right? I found this paper that basically said it's probably actually not possible to run Bitcoin purely on fees. Like it would break. Because
hey guys,
because
go ahead, Naka, go ahead.
yeah, so I mean, it's quite a complicated paper because it talks about, you know, like the various strategies that miners would use if you didn't have a block subsidy. But it's like I feel like there's a sort of there's like there's a big community of people who are into Bitcoin, and then there's like a technical community, and the crazy thing is they don't. It's almost like it's not like they don't intersect at all, but there's like a big gap. I did this series of polls on my Twitter. I've put one of them in the nest. Like the first question is, why does Bitcoin need miners, right? And you know, like 30% of people think you need miners to stop other people from spending your coins, which is not correct. Um, and you know, various other things like that. So I don't know. I thought it was interesting. It's been interesting to sort of dig into it a little bit technically, and you know, look at the differences between the I don't know, the meme side of Bitcoin and the code side.
We have the perfect
We
person.
have D plus plus.
Yes.
D plus plus. Did you
I
did you see my poll D plus plus? 30% of people.
hold on, Knock.
Go ahead.
I have to give the classic introduction so she can feel welcomed and embraced by the Because Bitcoin community. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce you guys to D++. In the previous space that I had in regards to Bitcoin specificity, she was one of the individuals that requested to speak, and she spoke along with some of the guys from Swan. I believe his name is Tomer Strolite or Strogate, something like that. And she mentioned a few things that I honestly want to entertain in this conversation, and that pertains to Bitcoin DeFi, Bitcoin smart contracts, and other things that can be built on Bitcoin. So, D, I want to welcome you on. Welcome to the show again. Feel free to introduce yourself before the onslaught of questions. Just kidding about that. But feel free to introduce yourself, and we'll take it from there. Thank you, by the way, for coming on. I know I had reached out to you earlier.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Appreciate it.
So
So
yeah, go ahead, Lobby.
yeah. So D, what are some developments going on in BTC right now that are entertaining, such as like the smart contracts and other implementations when it pertains to like the Bitcoin ecosystem that you can share with us?
Yeah, I mean, Bitcoin has a smart contract language that's built into the protocol. It's been built into the protocol since day one. And there are some folks who are making some cool things. There's a language called Miniscript that makes the Bitcoin script language a little bit easier to use. And I'm seeing some folks building some cool products using Miniscript. There's also a language called Simplicity, which is like a more expressive language that would allow you to do things that you might not be able to do in Bitcoin script, but you'd kind of have to do those in some kind of federation. You'd have to kind of do those outside of just the Bitcoin base layer base chain. So you could use Simplicity in a Fedimint federation, for example, or you could use a side chain. And in the Liquid side chain, you can do somewhat more expressive smart contracts. But I think a lot of folks, when they talk about smart contracts, what they sort of mean are altcoin smart contracts because they have the ability to be more expressive. They have the ability to sort of do things that we don't do in Bitcoin that we sort of don't want to do in Bitcoin.
Things like for loops.
Yeah. Like Turing complete operations. And there's like a reason why we don't do those in Bitcoin. It was a deliberate choice. It's not because something's wrong with Bitcoin or because Bitcoin is outdated or inferior. It's because Satoshi made that decision. And as it stands today, the folks who continue to use and maintain Bitcoin stand by that decision. So it's just,
Yeah,
it's
I
just
mean,
for your,
it's
for
kind
your,
of weird. A lot of these things are like, oh, it's that way because Satoshi said so. I mean, as I said to people earlier, I actually spoke to Wei Dai yesterday on Facebook because he's a friend of mine from a long way back, and I actually asked him about some of these things, like why do you think it was that, because you were involved a long time ago, why do you think they did it that way? And he was like, oh, probably because they just didn't have time to think about it. So like a lot of these decisions that are like, well,
Naka,
Satoshi said
Naka,
so.
Naka. By the way, the bear market ends when me and you are doxxed on Facebook. I don't make the rules, bro. The bear market, the bear market ends when your inner circle from crypto Twitter officially doxes to one another. And we do have some of our extended community members like Payne and Vestige, and we're in the
The bear
process.
market ends when I say it ends, Wabi.
And we're in the process of doing that. Like our boy Vestige took a selfie with a shark, and a
Yo!
few and a few days later, I think we hit like that low 15.3, 15.4. So yeah, just a bit of an inside joke, guys. If you want the bear market to be over, just
Dox all the homies, bro.
yeah.
So,
So
so I do got
do
a question though. So is there a DEX being built on Bitcoin right
I,
now, or is that
I think
available
that
right
Well,
now?
you can't build a DEX on Bitcoin, right? Because it doesn't have for loops. It's going to be a bit difficult.
yeah, like I'm wondering what the front end for that would look like, because like the tech is cool and all, right? Like the privacy layer on BTC and the side
Hang on,
chain.
wait. What privacy layer on BTC?
Well, I
let me,
believe.
let me just back up because I didn't really get a chance to um, continue that thread. So yeah, with regard to your conversation with Wei Dai, I think that Satoshi was pretty deliberate with the choices that he made. And I think that the users and developers on Bitcoin today are continue to be deliberate. I don't think it was just kind of whatever, it was a mistake because, Satoshi didn't even have to program an entire scripting language into Bitcoin at all. He could have just made like public private keys that we lock transactions without this whole scripting language. But there have been opcodes that have been disabled in Bitcoin script, such as opcat, for example, which concatenates things together. And they were disabled for like security reasons to prevent potential exploits. So I think if we wanted more expressive smart contracts on Bitcoin, I think we would have them. And with regard to dexes on Bitcoin, yeah, there's like RoboSats and there's Bisq and there's like certain peer-to-peer marketplaces you can use, but that might be different than what you would consider to be a DEX in sort of the DeFi space. But somebody did mention Web 5 and TBDEX, which is, I think, pretty interesting. Using
I don't
DIDs,
know
which
what
are
that is.
decentralized identifiers, and VCs, which are verifiable credentials, that allows you to discover other participants, and you can sort of take it from there, whether you want to buy and sell Bitcoins to it with your local currency, or you want to do other kinds of things, other kinds of exchanges. I think it remains to be seen, but it's something that has not yet been built out and completed. So I can't really speak to exactly how that's going to look, but I think it sounds cool as hell.
How does BISC actually work? I don't know how that works. What is it?
And I'm also wondering, like, how would an individual on the other side of the world, like El Salvador or somewhere in Africa or in Chile, how would they access these front ends? Like, how would it be possible to maximize the Bitcoin ecosystem? Because I do think that what we know today as BTC, right? I think it's gonna look a lot different in the next like 10 to 15 years, especially like with the block reward in I think like the early 2040s. I think like the reward is gonna be like less than a quarter BTC per block. So I think there are going to be incentives, right, to use the broader BTC ecosystem, but it's just like how that looks like on the front end for the user. Um, it's more of like a wait and see approach. So at the current moment, that's what I'm trying to find as far as signal goes. See what developments are ongoing and how that's going to
Well,
look like for the
I mean,
user.
I think in the 2040s, Bitcoin's going to blow up without a block reward, right? Nobody believes me, but when you read into it, it's actually fucked, right? Like, it actually needs a block reward.
So, D, in regards to what Naka has said, is there any merit to what he had said, or do you think like as halvings go on, it's just gonna be more treated as a global reserve currency? Because I do believe, by the way, that it will be a top five currency by market cap someday.
Well, I think we kind of don't really know what's exactly is going to happen. I think that either we're going to see a fee market materialize, so we could see fees like 100x from here. And if that doesn't materialize, then we're going to see other forms of subsidies. And if that doesn't materialize, then there's just not volume happening on Bitcoin, and people aren't using it for some reason, and Bitcoin kind of dies. So I think I see three kind of possible outcomes.
I mean, the other issue though is that there is an academic paper going around that I posted that says that it's quite possible that even with a healthy fee market, if you don't have a block subsidy, the game theory of mining is unstable, because the variable times at which valuable transactions appear mean that it's sort of incentivized to do selfish mining. And they're not sure, but they're I mean, like, they're not sure that it's actually even possible to run a blockchain on fees, even if the fees are big. So it's pretty wild. It's pretty wild. Not many people know about this. Not many people know what selfish mining even is. Maybe D, I don't know if you want to go into that, but it's basically where if you're a miner, and you mine a block successfully, normally if you're doing kind of normal mining, you just tell everyone about the block. But in selfish mining, you keep it to yourself and you try and mine another one on top of it. And this can be a way to attack Bitcoin, because you basically waste other people's time because they're trying to mine, and you end up kind of like thumping them with 4 or 5 blocks in a row.
Jeez, bro, Naka is like pounding on the doom here.
It's wild, dude. When you actually dig into it, it's wild.
Yeah, I mean, I think miners have sort of one incentive, and they are incentivized financially. So if the fee market materializes and if there's activity happening on Bitcoin, then they will continue mining it, and if it doesn't, then they won't. I don't think it's that complicated.
Yeah, can I chime in for a second here, guys? Wabi, by the way, congratulations on the show, buddy. Right,
Whoa,
cool to see
Archie.
that.
Archie, I haven't
What's
seen
up,
you
man?
in months, bro. I haven't seen you in a long time. Wow,
Yeah,
I
it's good to
thought
see you.
I thought you were someone else until I saw you like speak, bro. It's good to see you, bro. I haven't seen you in a minute, brother. It's always good to run into the initial class that came into the spare market, bro. I remember how it was, man. Back in February, earlier this year, it was me, Naka, Big Brandon, you, Avid, AFK, Matt, Magoo. I remember all of you, bro. I love you guys. Thank you,
Absolutely,
man. Thanks for showing up, man. Good to
absolutely,
see
man.
you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Here to support for sure. And just wanted to kind of pipe in and just kind of give my 2 cents here because I think focusing on the Bitcoin network and the Bitcoin, the Bitcoin rewards is kind of it's not really the thing to focus on. Bitcoin was sort of created to be one thing. It was created to settle transactions, right? And just do the same boring old thing. I hear Naka's point. I hear the argument that potentially there could be some vectors for attack, but I think that over time we've seen Bitcoin adapt to these vectors, and I think we've seen Bitcoin become more resilient when attacked in certain ways. Um, and I don't doubt that there's going to be more attacks on it as time goes on, but I have a feeling that there's plenty of good developers on the other side of it as well, right? Who are it's a constant cat and mouse game. We'll call it, I
Yeah, I mean,
guess,
my
between
point
both.
isn't that you can't fix the problem. Is that you need tail emissions to fix the problem, right? So Monero actually has done this. Monero has tail emissions. It emits a constant amount of Monero every block forever, which means the supply is potentially infinite, but it means that it's secure, right? It can't be taken to pieces
Sure,
like this.
sure, and I'm not discounting the value of Monero, for what Monero does, but my point
No, but
is that
I'm saying that Bitcoin needs that. Bitcoin needs tail emissions.
well, so Bitcoin, I think will continue doing exactly what it's been doing, and if people, sort of to build on what Dee was saying, if people find value in that, it's a very simple value prop. If people find value in that, then people will find value in that over time. I think that we have ETH and everything else down the line, for the next generation of, quote unquote tech plays, and that's great, right? Those are extremely interesting to look at and speculate on and try to figure out which of them is going to be around. But in 100 years from now or 20 years from now, even, right? It's going to come down to is the ability to transact in a permissionless global way with instant, near instant final settlement. Is that worth something or not, right? And who's the ultimate end user of that? And I think if it becomes used for that, I think that the value transacted on that network is going to be worth a lot, and the fees on that network will be worth a lot in order to keep the network going, and miners will
Yeah,
be
I mean,
incentivized
I,
to
I,
keep going.
yeah. So
Otherwise, of
I
course, it's
posted a
going to
paper.
fail, right?
Yeah,
There's no
I posted
100%.
right. I posted a paper to the Nest that says even if there are fees, without a block reward, Bitcoin could just break.
One or something, the green one where.
Yeah,
I could take a
Naka,
look
this
at
is
it.
the
I've
thing
never
though.
read
Like,
that
it's
myself,
kind of
but
disingenuous
my
to
point
just
is
Yeah,
just that.
like.
totally.
Go ahead, Avid.
Hey guys, we want to keep some structure here. Remember that we're all united under the power of friendship. I believe Premise was going to speak. We'll go to Premise, and then we'll go to Avid. All right, boys. Go ahead, Premise.
No, I'm at a checkout. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Okay. Avid, you're the
Yeah,
next one,
so
brother.
like I joined Naka's space like over the weekend, and we had like a couple of hour debate on mining attacks and stuff, and I wrote like a pretty extensive tweet thread on a 51%, and he did bring up the selfish mining thing. I get it, like I like asking or having thought experiments, but I think like Naka, I know you're like an ETH guy, but it's like I'm not coming in telling you about like OFAC compliant blocks like 24/7. So I think like just to like it's not wrong to ask these questions, but to just be hyper focused on the same thing and keep beating the same point when like we don't know, as D said, like this is far off into the future, and like you can theorize all you want and read papers and claim things, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what's going to happen. So I think, focusing more on like useful discussion instead of just fudding Bitcoin is more productive for everybody.
Well, I mean, so one way that this discussion can go is you could have some people who build chairs to sit on, and the chairs only have 3 legs. And you're like, hey guys, when you sit on that chair, it's going to fall over. And they're like, look, stop fudding the chair, okay? You don't know what's going to happen when you sit on it. And I'm like, well, there's this academic paper that says that this is actually broken, but maybe we're just going to have to sit on the chairs. I don't know, but I think it's certainly an interesting contrast between the technical side of crypto and the sort of the kind of meme side of crypto, because I think Bitcoin has this meme value as like it's reliable, it's stable, it's safe for the long term, and it's actually not. It has these problems that are sort of being shoved under the carpet, and people are saying, "Look, just don't think about it.
We could
Don't
say the
think
same
about
thing
it."
about ETH. Like I can go straight into all the problems with ETH and decentralization
Guys,
and
I
government
think
regulatory capture. Like we could go down that path too, but it's like how
Sure.
productive is that? It's like sure we know that there's things that.
Well, hey, but it's not an ETH space, right? It's a Bitcoin space. I'll fund ETH in
exactly,
the ETH space.
For
exactly,
yo,
dude. What's
for
what's
me,
Ethereum,
I
dude?
just
I don't know anything about
I'm
Ethereum, bro. Like I'm
Yeah,
staying
I don't
away
even know
from
what
all
it
that.
is. Don't even know
Yeah,
what it is.
yeah.
Don't
To
even know
be
what it
honest,
is.
man. But I think one
for
thing
me.
we should focus on. I'll finish off with this premise and I'll hand it over to you. I think the one thing that we should focus on is like, where does the majority of the capital for BTC come from, right? Cycle per cycle. And, initially it's essentially like large entities that prop us off of the bottom. It's definitely not retail, right? But a lot of the social capital that has remained in the space is still predominantly like, people that came in the space in 2014 or like myself 2017, right? So I think like for individuals like us that only seek to extract ROI cycle per cycle, we don't necessarily like look at the minute details from that, because essentially like at some point BTC is just going to be an extremely long passive bid, like a Dow Jones sort of index or like an S&P sort of index. And I think eventually like this topic won't even matter to individuals like us, by the time the 40s and 50s come back on again. Crazy to think about, right? Like the 2050s and the 2060s instead of the 1950s and 1960s. I think a lot of the passive bid is going to come from individuals like us, because I do think that out of the recession for next year, I think this asset class is going to prove itself to be formidable. At the end of the day, it's just one big trade, right? Like it's not going to ever decouple um, to the upside or anything like that. But I definitely think it's still like one big trade, and BTC does have its niche, and I think like millennials and Gen Z will be a part of that big bid more than people realize. But again, like these markets are cyclical. um, but I do think like, over time, eventually, like vol does die out, of course. But the passive bid, similar to like the indices, is always going to come from a select group of people, right? Like boomers, their passive bid is always going to be Apple stock. So I think for us, Apple stock would eventually be something like BTC, right? But again, that's just my speculation and all that stuff. We'll go with premise, and then we'll go with Archie, who's patiently had his hand.
Yeah,
I just I just want to
yeah,
I
I
just
kind of
want
want
to
to
jump
say
in
like I'm not gonna
quickly
knock this. Like, knock modalist is
before.
right. If he's saying he's pointing out something there, then it's there. But for me, like I said, I'm someone who uses Bitcoin. So he's saying there's a problem with Bitcoin, and I will research that. This isn't something that I want to get caught slipping with. Like if he's preaching
So
the truth, let the truth be spoke. But what I'm saying is, right now, I use Bitcoin for certain things, and like I hear him say Monero and stuff. But if let's say I went to a foreign country right now, not everyone knows what Monero is. So I still use Bitcoin. I don't care if Bitcoin's 20K or 2K. If I can get in and out of it, I think that's why you will have other cryptos that exist around it. I think that's why we actually probably still need stable coins, right? But like until something is more worldwide known and better used than Bitcoin, when I go somewhere, the best thing that I could do if I need to like up, and like back in the day, it's like if your country broke out in war, like Ukraine, you took some diamonds, you hit it up your butt or something, right? You tried to run from the war. Now you can just go into Bitcoin, right? I
So
mean,
so
no one
premise.
really I don't know where you can transact Monero and often, but I've seen Bitcoin ATMs in different countries and stuff. So right now, until something there's better, that's the way I just kind of look at it.
Yeah.
But
So
I will heed word to that though. I
I think
mean,
it's
I don't really
important.
use it. I don't store my entire wealth into Bitcoin. To me, it's a tool that's used for a purpose that Satoshi Nakamoto wrote up, and I use it for that purpose to
Yeah,
transact anonymously, right?
I think it's important to note that this is the internet, right? So anybody can say anything. Like someone can say, "Hey, Bitcoin has fundamental problems and it doesn't work," and that doesn't make it true. So
I
the
mean, that was the
idea,
end of my rant, by the way.
so so the idea that Bitcoin is somehow broken because miners will not compete to solve blocks for fees is untrue. Like, but just because someone says that doesn't make it true. I think the question that we're looking at is not one that needs to be solved with some kind of engineering solution. There's no engineering solution that we need for Bitcoin's fee market to materialize. It's it's a game theoretical problem. It's a problem of network effects. It's a problem of adoption. It's not an engineering problem. So either we see folks continue to onboard to Bitcoin, which I believe we do, or we don't. And we don't need to change the code. Now, that said, this idea that miners would somehow break consensus, I think doesn't make sense from a game theoretical perspective. Because if you're a miner and in order to mine Bitcoin, you have to buy a lot of gear, and that gear costs money, and you have to buy electricity. So if you are doing things that breaks Bitcoin, why would you want to break Bitcoin if you've invested billions of dollars into ASICs that you're using to break Bitcoin? Like, we would have no incentive to break the very thing that you need to survive.
Well, no,
So,
you would, because you can have some games like Tragedy of the Commons where you have 100 different farmers and they have a common field that they graze their cattle on, and it would be best for everyone collectively if each farmer restrained how much grazing they did, but because they each have their own individual selfish incentives, they overgraze it, and then everyone's cattle die, right? So you can get things like that. I mean, that's the game theory of breaking Bitcoin, right?
So
Um,
I think it's fine to compete. If you're a miner, of course, you're going to want to have a competitive edge, but you're not going to be incentivized to break the consensus of the
well,
Bitcoin protocol.
but you can do selfish mining, right? I mean, that's a real attack. Selfish mining is a real attack. You hide the blocks that you mine. You don't show them to other people, right?
And I think
I
this
think
has to be like at least a future bottom signal. This has to be, man. This has to
Look,
be.
it's not a problem that's going to happen this cycle. It's a long term thing. But the thing is, Bitcoin is sold as a long term thing. I mean, there is such thing as selfish mining. You know,
sure, and
that,
if the fee market does materialize, if I'm a miner and I find a block, I would not have any incentive to withhold that block.
oh yes, you would. If you have a fee market and if you mine a block, whether you want to reveal it or not might depend on how much fees there is in it. So you might get a particularly rich block, which you then, whether it's a rich block or a poor block, determines whether you want to reveal it to others, right? It actually gets quite complicated, right? It actually gets quite complicated, and it could break if there isn't a block reward.
Archie, do you want to add? You have your hand up,
I
brother.
don't really
Yeah,
I don't entirely
yeah, I don't
follow
really.
that
Yeah, I
reasoning
was gonna
because
say that doesn't really make sense to me.
because
But D plus, finish your thought. I had something to add to it after though.
yeah, no, I don't follow that line of argument because I mean even currently uh we I just I don't follow why anyone would withhold a block.
Well, because you can do better if you withhold blocks, right?
Part of
If you
his premise
if
is
you have
that you're doing it in secret, so so you build a longer chain in private and then expose it to the network or something like
yeah
that. That's what he's trying to say, D.
yeah. I mean, selfish mining is a real thing, right? But if you combine selfish mining with a system where there's no block reward, it makes it worse. But like, I mean, this is some kind of advanced stuff, right? I mean, I don't want to bore everyone with this
No,
shit. I just want to.
it's not boring. I know what a selfish miner attack is. I'm just not following the game theoretics of why someone would break Bitcoin when it's their livelihood.
You're breaking the honeypot essentially if you do that.
Tragedy of the commons. The same reason that people will hunt whales to extinction or overfish a shoal of fish until they're extinct.
But Naka, so can't the same argument be made for a proof of stake system? I mean, even more so for a proof of stake system?
Well, it depends on the details of the implementation. You know, is right, because basically when you make a blockchain, you're making a game, and you know the miners are like finding a Nash equilibrium of that game, and if the Nash equilibrium is, you know, for everyone to break everything, then maybe that's what'll happen. But I mean, that's why designing blockchains is difficult, right? Because you have all of these different actors doing their own selfish things, and you want to make it so that they're incentivized to cooperate rather than to hurt each other. But you can have these issues like
also
yeah.
fascinating, and
Yeah,
that's
you can
why
have
it's good to discuss this stuff. Honestly, I think it's good to have these conversations and
yeah.
pick
Well,
apart
look,
all of these things. It's important.
the paper for this stuff is in the nest. I've put it up there in a tweet if anyone wants to dig deeper.
I will definitely check that out. I'm very interested in seeing other opposing points of views. And just also my only point I'm making is that you can have a lot of issues with a lot of different chains as well. So these arguments go deep and they're healthy to have. They are very healthy to have. And I enjoy having.
Can I ask them a question too? Nakamoto list. So how do you track, by the way, who is doing this, and how can you see that it's reaching a point in time that could be a problem? Like, I guess, like,
well,
it
only becomes a problem when the halvings have reduced the block rewards so much that it's like negligible, right? So it's like 6 Bitcoins now. It's going to be 3 or 6.25, 3.125 in the next one, and so on. But eventually, it's going to be like 0.01, and at that point, Bitcoin is going to be very fragile, because if the fee market doesn't materialize, somebody will 51% attack Bitcoin, vandalize it, do whatever to it. If the fee market does materialize, we're all going to be reading these papers about the game theory of a blockchain without block rewards and whether that's actually stable or not.
Naka, weren't you entertaining something like maybe BTC can be somewhat of a gas token as the halvings?
But that's what it is. All right, when you're collecting fees, right, that's a gas token, right? So the idea for Bitcoin is, in the end, it's supposed to work purely by people paying fees. So Bitcoin would be a quote unquote gas token because you need to buy Bitcoins as your gas to send a transaction, right?
Yeah, so like that would essentially work via a proposal then. Eventually this would have to be addressed. Probably not.
Well, it already is. It already is addressed. In Bitcoin, you already have to pay a fee in Bitcoin for sending money on Bitcoin, right? So it's already a gas token. It's just that the vast majority of the money that goes to miners comes from the block subsidy, right? And that gets halved. That when we say the halving, that subsidy is halved every 4 years, right? So right now, like 99% of the money, 99% of the Bitcoin that miners get, or 98%, comes from that block subsidy, and only 1 or 2% comes from the fees that people are paying, right? But in the future, as the fees go down, as the block subsidy goes down exponentially, it's actually, the fees are actually going to have to pick up that, that missing money, basically.
Yeah, I want to go back to somebody asked something about privacy. Someone said Bitcoin privacy layer. I think it was Wabi, actually. So just a little tidbit, like if you wanted more privacy than Bitcoin main chain, one of the things you can do, and again, Dee's like the technical expert on the stage here. She can talk more in detail to how this stuff works, but you can send main chain Bitcoin to like a Moon wallet, which is basically, it's a wallet that does submarine swaps, and then you can send Lightning from that to another wallet. So basically you can kind of obfuscate your transactions, like where they're going, like once you get it on Lightning, just because the stuff that happens on Lightning isn't public. So it's not necessarily like a Monero, and I'm not trying to compare it or put it on the same level, but for someone like Wabi, you were saying you had some issues with transfers or something. If you wanted to transfer from one exchange to another exchange and you didn't want people or one exchange to know where that stuff was going, like you could send that to yourself and kind of bounce it between a few Lightning wallets. And then when it reaches the destination, it's likely that they wouldn't be able to track necessarily where it came from.
Yeah, I think there does have to be some sort of Bitcoin DEX, and not just one. I think there has to be multiple. Because the fact of the matter is, dude, like sending BTC off of KuCoin and having it take 40 minutes on a Sunday afternoon is just not acceptable, brother. You
Yeah,
know,
man.
and not everybody is gonna use things like ledgers. Because when you look at the demographic, right? In places like Africa and Chile, not all of them have hardware wallets. You know what I mean? So there does have to be um, some sort of front end outside of just like traditional exchange, and I think things like dexes, I think they could be very beneficial. But how that looks, I'm not sure, man. I'm not sure. But
Yeah, I mean, Lightning is pretty awesome, man.
yeah.
Like I don't know if I told you this the other day, but I sent a test transaction to Wallet of Satoshi. I was messing around with it. D was telling me about it, so I was like, oh, let me check this thing out. I had 7 Satoshis in like another wallet. So I sent 6 Satoshis to my new Wallet of Satoshi with a fee of 1 Satoshi, which there's like what 2,000 Satoshis per dollar. So like less than a thousandth of a dollar. I sent stuff instantly from one wallet to another. So Lightning is pretty fucking awesome. And if you haven't messed with it, it's like people that talk about Bitcoin as being slow. It's like, yeah, I get it. Main chain transactions, like, having that permanent finality and being able to settle billions of dollars. Yeah. Okay. It's like blocks come every 10 minutes. And depending on your fee, how high of a fee you pay, you'll get in sooner or later. But Lightning is fucking awesome, man. And like just playing around with it over the last year, because since 2018, I've just been using main chain until about the last year. And now I've really been fucking with Lightning. Kraken has Lightning integrated. You could send stuff straight to your Kraken account like in seconds, literally, like complete settlement. You don't have to wait for confirmations. So if you haven't already tried it, like definitely suggest like downloading Wallet of Satoshi. And if you have Strike or have a buddy send you some Sats via Lightning and send it back, just see how quick it is and how easy it is to use. It's pretty fucking incredible.
All right, guys. Just a reminder, my name is King Wabi, and I am here presenting to you the Bitcoin edition of Crypto World Radio, which is my show Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time with some special guests throughout the week, whether they're devs, whether they're involved in the venture capital space, or whether it's core projects like we had with Neutron that are building out the DeFi hub on Cosmos. Um, and more community spaces like these. We have our boy Naka here. We have Avid. We have a new member in the community, D Plus, Premise, Vestige, of course, uh, with the funny faces. And yeah, we're talking about BTC and its current prospects, and future prospects, and things that can be developed and are being developed on chain. And all right, let's continue the conversation. Oh, Archie's back. I'll bring you right back up, brother. And just a reminder, if you want to keep up to date with spaces like these that keep you entertained and provide some value on your day, be sure to follow Because Bitcoin. I'll be doing all of my crypto specific spaces right on there. So, yeah. Um, I don't think I've let Payne or
So
Vestige speak. Vestige, you
so
want to say anything,
so in
brother?
the end, my bad. What were you saying?
I was just saying if Vestige wanted to say something, he had requested to speak, but he hasn't had the opportunity to say anything. Vestige,
Oh
you
yeah,
there,
yeah. Go
brother?
ahead, Prestige.
I don't think Prestige is there, bro.
He's drowned by Bloomberg. Payne, do you want to add anything?
Uh, yeah, I mean, I think it's even though Naka is like I think it's interesting to have these discussions, even if like it might not be true. I think it's healthy to entertain the idea of like problems with Bitcoin because as much as as much as people want to just say like, oh yeah, there's no problems, it's the perfect software. I mean, up until this point, it really proven that it has been. So that's good, but I think it's also important to just like analyze different potential scenarios. So even if
Yeah, but
you're
what you got
saying
to remember,
Naka's,
what you got to remember is Bitcoin now has a block subsidy. In the future, it won't. It's completely different, right?
yeah, that is. I mean, that's good. That's a good point. That's why I think these discussions are interesting, and I don't think you should just be saying Naka's fudding just because he's bringing up
No.
potential.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that to come on
Yeah,
here and say it's fucked. It's like, look, everything's a probability, and like there's a likelihood of it happening or not,
that's
right?
fair.
And that's what I have issue with. Is not. I actually really enjoyed being in Naka's space and debating 51% attack, and I learned some things from him, and like. And I totally agree with what you're saying. Like, I'm not one of the Bitcoiners that's like, oh, it's all good. It's automatic. Everything's going to happen for sure. It's like, I think it has a high likelihood of success, but that doesn't mean there's not threats. And I'm totally open with having those discussions. But to me, it's disingenuous to just say, oh, it's for sure going to be fucked. It's like, we don't have evidence of that. I think to Dee's point, things will develop. We don't know what's going to happen. So as long as we're honest and say like, hey, this is a possibility, but not come out and say that it's a certainty. That's what I have issue with, is saying it's fucked because XYZ, because I say so, because I read a paper. It's like, that's not really
Yeah,
intellectually
I
honest.
I think actually what will happen is eventually people will come around to my point of view and implement tail emissions on Bitcoin. It'll just take a while.
So Phil, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just was trying to clarify that I have no problem with having the discussion.
Yeah,
It's just I prefer to speak. I'm an engineer, like as far as my day job, and so it's like when I do stuff and people say, "Is this going to work?" And it's like I can't say for certain, man. Like I just say, like, "Hey, it's a high likelihood of succeeding. There's risks involved. What are the level of risks?" So just like kind of being pragmatic about it, right, and not being an absolutist. That's the kind of
well, I
perspective I like
mean,
to take.
from an engineering point of view, right? Bitcoin will probably not work once the block subsidy is too small because there isn't a fee market at the moment, or it's just not enough, right? Now, if we get that fee market, right? So this is hopium, right? Then there's still this additional problem that the game theory of mining will be unstable. We can't be 100% sure that it will break, but like it's not looking good, right? There's like two things you have to be lucky on for it to work. Adding a tail emission fixes both of them. You just do the set. You just 1 Bitcoin per block forever. That's all I'm asking for. Make the Bitcoin supply infinite.
So would there
Yeah, I
would
mean
there
that's
go ahead, D.
yeah, that's the beauty of Bitcoin is that you are absolutely free to implement those changes. You can add tail
Yeah,
emissions.
you could fork it, but then nobody would mine that, and it would die like all the other Bitcoin forks die, right?
Yeah.
So you need to actually persuade people. You need to persuade people that it's in their own interest to do it, not that it's like some contrarian idea that you're doing just like an ego trip, because that won't get you anything. That'll get you the next Bitcoin gold, and it's fucked, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and so you're free to fork Bitcoin and you're free to persuade folks to use your fork. I mean, that's the beauty
What's the
of this
projected
space.
time right now?
For what?
You said it would be a few minings. Like how many minings we know, or halvings? My bad. So we know how many halvings we have.
I
So I was
I
just
I
wondering.
think it I I think it blows up at some point between 2040 and 2050.
When Naka chain, Naka, I really want to get in on the seed round of this one,
All
please.
all it needs is tail emissions for Bitcoin. That's literally all it needs.
Yeah,
Weren't
yeah.
you
You're
That's tail.
saying
speaking of
there's a
Naka?
possible fix, and they got 20 years to decide whether to fix it or not. Is what I'm
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of Naka chain, weren't you
hearing.
talking
Okay,
about
yeah.
dumping? You had some shitcoin in the works like 8 or 9 months ago that I remember you talking about. Did that ever come to fruition? Not to get too far
Oh
off
yeah,
topic.
well, I mean, I don't want to go too far off the topic, but I did, and basically what happened with that is, it turns out that it's what I was thinking of doing. I asked for devs to come and help me because I can't code. Well, I can't code Solidity well enough to do anything serious, right? I mean, I could make like a sort of joke, a a coin that doesn't really do anything interesting, but to do something interesting was actually like a lot more work than we thought. So the devs, the guys who came to help me ended up launching the Saudis NFTs and made a lot of money on that instead. So, congratulations to them.
Naka, I wasn't aware of that, man. I always thought you were
That was a
just
great
like
project, dude.
a
Saudi
a
NFTs.
BTC miner, dude. Yeah, that actually falls in line with a prediction that that Bandemic has entertained. 2045, ain't that right, Bando?
Dude, I think Bitcoin in 2045 will go up only.
Wouldn't that be something, dude? Like at that point, what if there's a way? Again, this is a knock on wood, but what if there's a way to essentially, BTC strictly as a gas token? There was some sort of burn mechanism. Again, pure knock on wood, and I know it's not possible.
But the thing is,
But
with the burn mechanism stuff, it's like, what
yeah,
other
I
coins
know.
have it? What other coins have the burn
Yeah,
mechanism? Like BNB doesn't, don't they have something like that? Or doesn't ETH have something like
yeah,
that too? And it's just like,
ETH
yeah,
does. ETH has EIP 1559. But if you're going to do a burn, because
but it
I
keeps
get
going down.
the right, but like you have to understand everything's going down, right? We're in the worst environment ever for stuff to go down. So of course ETH is going to go down, right? But the idea of a burn mechanism is basically, look, when you have a system like this where some people put money in and some people take money out, if you're taking money out, somebody else is losing, right? So if you're making money on ETH and cashing out and buying the yacht, right? Who paid for your yacht? Well, ultimately, it's somebody who paid gas fees to use the Ethereum network, right? Ethereum has 10x the fees of Bitcoin, right? I don't want to make this ETH versus BTC, but you got to understand, ETH has users, right? It has paying users.
Yeah,
It
people
has
that are
like
trying to mint NFTs because they expect
right?
to make money.
They're trying to mint NFTs. They're trying to mine shit coins. Like they're doing the most degenerate, horrendous stuff, but they're paying ETH for it, right? So that if you're going to talk about a burn mechanism, right? Bitcoin's going to have a burn mechanism. Well, somebody's got to pay, right? And there's no magic. Blockchain is not financial alchemy, right? Every dollar, every real dollar that somebody takes out, somebody else lost, right? It's just the way it works.
I just look at like I hope that Bitcoin can find a bottom here. Hopefully before 10K.
yeah. I think currently at the moment, if BTC starts putting in daily candles, I think it's below 14K.
It's ugly, man.
You're
There's
gonna
nothing there.
Yeah, you're gonna have a margin call on Marathon. When our boy Nick was here, and he is a market maker for a pretty large derivatives exchange, and he essentially told us that like Marathon had some of their stack called when we traded at 15.3, and essentially they had to back up the truck on that margin um, a few weeks back. But there's essentially a trapdoor
What
sub
was interesting too,
15K.
Lobby, was he said that their break even price was like 18.2, right? And
Yeah, and
that's
so
like to the
with that being,
exact wick for the PAL pump is where we
yeah,
went was 18.2. So
yeah,
they probably have limit sells there.
yeah, and with that being said, if the break even price for miners is at 18K, then there's a case to be made that in the next 18 months, regardless if we go to 11, 12, 10K, that from an evaluation standpoint, we could see BTC trade in the mid 30s. And I know right now that might seem like a lot, but one thing to keep in mind is that you now have people at this current moment who are more bearish than established traders like GCR was last year. The same people who were bullish around this time last year, right? Just as GCR turned max bearish, are now max bearish and are painting the most ridiculous scenarios. And you guys know that when a majority of individuals turn max bear after a full year of down only, when we're down 75% across majors, it typically does not go in that direction, right? So I feel like
Well, you got to remember, Wabi. There's crypto, which has quite fast cycles, and then there's the economy as a whole, which has slower cycles. And I think this is going to fuck people, right? Because they're used to crypto cycles, where basically crypto's chugging along in 2016. Everyone becomes a degenerate in 2017, and then you have 2018 is the hangover. And then in late 2018, early 2019, it bounces. But the reason it bounced was because it bounced off what is ultimately still a bull market in stocks, right? The whole of the period from 2010 to 2020 was a bull market in stocks. We're now in a bear market in stocks. It's going to devastate crypto. I don't think we've bottomed.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of higher time frame signals that suggest further downside. But I still think it's going to be just like every other cycle, to be honest, and we'll likely put in that bottom near the 80% retracement mark, 80%,
Yeah,
83%, something like that. Because the fact of
yeah,
the
it wouldn't
matter is,
surprise me.
yeah, and like the fact of the matter is, if we look back on the FTX situation, and Payne can tell you, Bando can tell you, Vestige can tell you, we were hosting a space that day for 8 hours, and
Yeah, that was wild, bro. That was when
yeah,
Nug came in too and just nuked.
and and people were like, "Oh my goodness, it's gonna go to 3K, it's gonna go to 4K. All the market makers are completely done. It's all gonna just disappear, and this, that, and the other. Like, why even bid here? You know what I mean?" And what happened? What happened? Matic essentially ripped from like 72 to $1 and change. All the altcoins bounced like crazy. BTC put in that think of like what was it, like a 15% candle from 15.3 to 18.4, something like that, in like the very next day. And the thing is, when you have these breakdown ranges, we're at a point where, say we do go to 15.3, the amount of people that are going to pile in to try to short that breakdown, I think it's going to be very, very short lived, man. You usually never catch the last leg of a bear market, and you never. Same thing goes with the bull market, right? Like that last pump kind of catches everyone by surprise. Like look at all the shit coins in the metaverse that pumped out of nowhere in November, right? Like you literally had like these liquid shit coins pump like 120% every other day. So same thing goes for downside. Like what's happened, it's inevitable, but by the time it happens, it kind of catches people by surprise. And I think that bottom, wherever it is that we bottom, when it does happen, you have to be in that mind state like, all right, what's the sentiment and what's the chart showing you? you know and typically when you have a majority of people that are sellers, you usually want to be the buyer. you know Kind of like when there's a ton of people twat buying, market buying, you want to sell to them, right? That's just the way markets work. And I think we're getting to a point that the market is so liquid that when we do break the floor, I think it's gonna be a quick one, dude. I don't think we're gonna put in quarterly candles in our bottom range. And yeah, those are my thoughts as far as like bottoming and all that stuff. I know we've entertained that a lot, but yeah, I see we have.
I mean, I don't want Bitcoin to go to 38. That would suck, man. That would suck for a lot of people, man.
Brando, I legitimately thought that was like a meme line, bro. You've said it so many times. The meme
A ni-
Dude,
line,
I hate that I truly believe that one day it will be there. And it's
the
just
meme
like,
line, dude.
a
The
a
meme line.
90% correction would be what, 6,900 or something. So I mean, I
Yeah,
could definitely see it more.
6,900.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
but
I mean,
like,
six
I
thousand
mean,
is
I don't
definitely.
want it to go there. I'm gonna try and long it at like 14 if I get it. 14 to 12. I mean, I think that 14 to 12 is like that last chance before like a real ugly, waterfall
I agree with
because there's
you,
just
yeah,
nothing under
Bando.
there.
I'm actually surprised. I was expecting it to go to 14 sooner. And like I'm long term bullish. Like I don't want it to go there. Like I actually had a buddy at
I
40K.
actually think it's making its way there. Like, right, I think it's making its way there as it's kind of like chopping around where it's at right now.
At 40K, I had one of those buddies who's like, "Oh, I don't care. I want it." Like he's like, "I want it to nuke so I can buy it cheaper." And I was like trying to tell him, I'm like, "Dude, like even though we're bullish, like there's people, new entrants to the market who are completely fucking wrecked. Like people who got in,
Well,
people get in over their skis and they get a little too heavy into things and so I'm actually surprised that we didn't go there yet. And that's to me, it's been showing some good strength. Like even people do say FTX, but I guess the one thing I'll say about FTX is like they didn't have any Bitcoin to liquidate, right? Like the domino that set this whole thing really off, cascading down hard, was what? It was like Anchor Protocol liquidating their BTC, and then the GBTC trade unwinding on all those institutions. So
I think what we're seeing is DCG and Genesis potentially unloading some on OTC Bitcoin. That's why the price has been so steady over here. And even if we do go lower, I think being long term bullish is it's a good thing, right? If you're going to have an opportunity to buy lower, then it's a good thing the lower it goes.
I mean, I'd sell my girlfriend to buy. No, I wouldn't do that shit, but I would sell, a couple of my things to buy some more big. I mean, actually, I don't hold any spot Bitcoin, but I would definitely buy a lot at 3,800. I mean, and it's not that I wanted to go there because honestly, I think a lot of people will like fucking get really hurt.
I
But
think
I
it's a
just,
loss of confidence at that point.
I agree. I
I think
think
yeah,
that's
legitimately it's a loss of
Yeah, I've
confidence.
talked about that, dude. It's like at that point, bro, the thesis of it being a store of value has essentially failed. Like not technically, but just from a pure price wise. Like I think it would take so
yeah.
long for people to get confidence back, dude. I mean, you're talking about people that bought at 60K, like they are absolutely essentially got zeroed.
Just
Like it's no
obliterated.
different.
They are
Yeah,
eviscerated, bro. They're
What kind of
they're
price are we
working two
talking about
jobs.
here?
we're
What are we
we're
talking?
300,
doom.
like
The
Yeah,
the
3K.
COVID wick.
Oh,
But
we're
the
not going to 3K. I'll tell
Yeah.
you
yeah,
why we're not
that's
going to
doom.
3K.
Bro, you're an
Okay?
idiot
We're,
if you
we're, we're not. We're
there's
not.
no chance that it could go there. Don't even
The
say that it
miners
can't
will
go
say
there,
It's
bro.
that.
it's not.
Don't
No,
even
no.
say that it can't go there, dude.
It's. I'll tell you why it can't. Right. The reason we can't go to 3K
It
is because
can
there's
go
two.
there, bro.
No, we
It
can't.
can.
No, we
You're
can't.
delirious. You're delirious if you think
Nope.
it
dude,
can't
let him
go there,
finish
dude.
his
It can go
point,
It
Vince.
can't
directly.
go there. It
It
can't
can
go
go
there.
to
I'll tell
100K.
you
It can
why.
go.
Fellas, we're gentlemen, all right? This is the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and we're here united via the power of friendship. Okay, we're going to go with Naka, then we're going to go with Vestige, all right? Fellas, we're gentlemen. We have to represent. Let's do this. Let's be better. Okay.
Okay, so this is why we cannot go to 3K. We have too much in stablecoins right now to get there, right? So the way crypto works is the price of crypto can go between two bands, right? There's like a high risk band and there's a low risk band, right? When, you know, and those bands are determined by how much money people have to buy the dip, right? And that is the stablecoin supply, right? So if there's a whole bunch of stablecoins, there's like, $138 billion worth of stablecoins, whatever it is now, right? The Bitcoin market cap is not going to go below 138 billion, right? It just doesn't do that, right? And the stablecoin supply now is like it's more than 20 times what it was in March 2020, right? So we cannot go back to those prices unless we shed the stablecoins, right? So if all those stablecoins leave crypto, people cash out, take it out of the system, then yeah, okay, maybe we could. But I'm not seeing that.
All right. First off, don't use the
And
word
then you go to
can.
logarithmic chart. I mean,
First
I'm
off, don't use
not
the
saying
word
it'll
can't 'cause
happen,
you don't know that it can't
but
go
it
there.
might.
Also, like we can say, don't use can't if you're saying it can't go to like 100K or 80K. Like no one knows ideally where we're gonna go. You have to leave every door open, and there's a potential that yes, it can go down to the COVID wicks. There's a
Isn't
lots
the
of
worst
liquidity
thing if
down
it
there.
gets down that low? I mean, you're not supposed to put your whole life savings in Bitcoin. I do
Exactly
hate that a
not. You
lot of
guys are
people did
idiots if
that,
you don't have
but
that. I don't own
I
anything
mean,
right
Either
now.
still.
I'm
3K and
completely cash.
100K is then on the table for me.
Here's my issue, guys.
Not
I
Here's
will.
kidding.
my
I
issue.
am. I am.
I think Naka makes some really strong points. Here's my issue with confidence. For many, and I brought this up in a couple of spaces, for many years, it's been like, oh, the 200 week, the 200 week. Even I was looking at it like, fuck, 200 weeks a great buying opportunity, right? Well, now we spent 157 days below the 200 week. And so the narrative, the story that we tell ourselves, the story that people have been told, is turning out to be, at least in the near term, not the case, right? And so when we look at models, right, like
Okay, but like,
so
but the thing is, the 200 moving average thing was always bullshit, and I called it out before we even got to it.
fair
Right?
enough,
There's
but
no
the point
reason
is
that
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 like
should
that
be
shakes a
support.
lot of people who have leaned on that as like when they tell themselves it's okay. I'm going in hard. It's at the 200 week, and then it just fucking rips through the 200 week like nothing. It's a confidence shaker, right? That doesn't mean that the network isn't working and there's not still some fundamental value or the potential to go up. I'm just saying that, like,
So let me explain why we went through the 200 week. Okay, when you have something like Bitcoin, right? Early on in its life, it grows very quickly, which is a period where I unfortunately was not invested, like a fucking idiot, right? But early in its life, it goes up very quickly. Early in Bitcoin's life, in the first Bitcoin bear market, if you had waited to buy the dip on the 200-week moving average in 2011, you would have waited forever, right? Because it didn't go there. It actually bounced at the 125-week moving average in the first bear market. The second one, right? The second one, it did make it to the 200-week. And then the third one, it also made it to the 200-week. But I think the second and third making it to the same moving average are actually coincidence, right? Because the bear market in 2018 was actually unusually mild. It should have been worse. And there was like the J. Powell pivot that was caused by President Trump. We were in the massive stocks bull market. That, I think, basically meant that bear market just wasn't particularly nasty, right? And you can tell when you look at the charts, when you look at the sentiment, you know, it was a somewhat random fluctuation, a bit higher than it should have been, right? But basically, if you just have a coin that grows very quickly early on in its life, and then later on it can't grow as quickly, right? Because it's just like, you know, if you going from one person knowing about Bitcoin to 1 million people knowing about Bitcoin is a factor of 1 million of growth,
Do you
and you
need to
can't.
stop or can't say I think?
Right. No, but you can't do another factor of 1 million because there are not 1 million people in the world, right? There are not 1 trillion people. It's just not possible. So once you've gone through that first factor of 1 million growth in the first, 6 or 5 years, whatever it was for Bitcoin, till 1 million people found out about it, you have to slow your growth down. It's just mathematically not possible to grow as quickly once the asset is already mature. And as a consequence of that, these moving averages that were supports earlier on, they're not supports later on, right? And we're just going to keep seeing this, right? Until
Bro,
it.
there's a fat pocket of liquidity from 5,855 all the way to 4,842. And the bottom of the COVID wick is 3,853. So it might not go there, but there is a chance. And I'm not saying it will. I'm saying it can potentially come down to that range of 5,855 to 4,842. And my thesis is if it does come down that low, I'm not saying it will, there's potential that it will. If it comes down that low, it probably won't last there for long. I've discussed this with Wobby before. I think if it comes down to those lows, it will hit there pretty quick, scam wick down there, and then bounce back up. But there is a chance. You can't say can't because you don't know. You don't know everything. It's like the people that said, oh, the war in Ukraine wasn't going to happen. It can't happen. Well, it did. None of us know. Go back 1,000 or 1,000,000 years ago. I'm sure fucking knights of the round table were saying, oh, no one will ever go to the moon. And people went to the moon. You don't know. You have to say, I think.
I'm highly confident that Bitcoin will not exceed.
Okay, and I'm highly confident that it's going to come down to at least 8K or 11K, and if it does, I'll be.
Well, 11K is totally possible, right? But
And if it comes
in
down
order,
to these
yeah,
lows that I'm saying, I
yeah.
will laugh at you. That's all I'm saying, bro.
Right, but what I'm saying is I'm saying it can go to that price, but we'd have to shed more stable coins first.
Yeah,
And I'm
the
not
thing
sure.
the thing is, guys, it's like, we can come up with price theatrics, just a matter of how we get there, right? 3 months ago, right, when we were at 25K, what have you, if someone were to tell you, FTX is gonna go under, and I'm aware there's a small group of people that, called for SBF to go to jail, this, that, and the other, but
I
if
had
you
no clue
knew
that it was going to
but
crash.
if you but what I was gonna say is, like, if you knew with 100% certainty, right, like, you traveled into the future and you went back to present day being August of 2022, and you knew that FTX was going to rug, and you told somebody, then they would have told you, then for sure BTC would have gone straight back to COVID lows, or 6K or 7K. And what did we get? What did we
Yes,
get,
Wabi, I
guys?
agree with you
A,
on.
a 10% a 10% deviation from the June lows. That's incredibly weak,
But
man.
that's because we
So
thought
it,
FTX
Well,
had Bitcoin and they had no
they didn't
Bitcoin,
have any
right?
Bitcoin, yeah.
That's correct.
yeah, that
Wabi, I can pull up the tweet where I said that there was a good chance that FTX would rug. on the 3rd of November. And then underneath that, I said, well, maybe it won't affect the price that much because do they actually have any Bitcoin to sell? And it turned out that those are both correct, right? But I mean,
Yeah, and
like,
I called 16086 Bitcoin in March and this time last year, and it went down there. So what, bro?
yeah. But the point is, like, when we're in this environment, macro environment, these things are going to happen, right? Barry is going to be the next one probably to go because he has to sell 20% of Grayscale,
I
right?
mean,
Which is
and
like 100.
Sheridan has been
Naka,
calling for him to go to
Silvergate,
prison
man. You got
for
Silvergate.
like 6 months, but we know he's the mega bear. Jayla.
Naka,
Yeah.
Naka by Barry, do you mean like Barry Manilow?
But
Like
Barry
like a sweet
Manilow.
song, like a
A
sweet
sweet
swan
song.
song, dude. I hope it's not a Black
Swan
Swan
song for
song, dude.
Bitcoin.
Um,
Yeah.
because to my knowledge, what's going on at DCG, there's essentially like a big restructuring happening. I think if they were actually going to file for bankruptcy and whole Chapter 11 situation, I think that would have happened already, to be honest. And you would see some sort of
But
activity on
okay,
chain.
but no, what they're doing though is they're doing this thing called a tender offer where they're basically going to, if you're in GBTC, they're going to give you an offer to buy your GBTC from you for a premium to the market price, right? So GBTC is like, I don't know, 9K at the moment or something. They'll say, look, we'll buy it from you for 11K. And then once they've bought it from these people who are like trapped in the Barry's Bitcoin jail, right, for 11K, they'll then dump it on the market for 16 and pocket the 5K difference, right? And they'll dump 100K Bitcoin like that. And, they'll
they'll pay
make
back
a decent chunk
they'll
of
pay
change.
back Gemini the $1
Yeah,
billion that they owe.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Right. But the thing is, remember, again, cryptocurrency, it's all a zero sum game. Whenever somebody puts money in, right? When somebody pulls money out, somebody else is putting it in, right? So who's paying for that? Ultimately, it's the people who are going to be buying the Bitcoin that Barry dumps who are going to be paying the bill, right? So what that means is probably going to dump the Bitcoin price because whoever actually buys the Bitcoin is probably going to demand a little bit of a discount to be buying Barry's shit. So, excuse my language, but that's basically the way it's going to go down. And he's probably going to do it for ETH as well, right? He's probably going to do this for ETH.
Yeah,
Um,
I think eventually, Ethereum catches up, as far as its ratio to BTC. I think that's going to catch up eventually, and I think we're in a situation similar to May. I believe Cold Blooded Schiller posted this Doomer chart, essentially describing us on a weekly time frame, pretty much matching 1-to-1 to where we were after the Terra collapse, right? So if you look at the weekly structure, since our low at, I think it was November 21st, sorry, not 21st, gosh. But if you look at our low from November 21 and you go on the weekly time frame, and then you compare it from like May 10th all the way to that first weekly close of June, and then you kind of zoom out, you'll see that like the market structure is somewhat similar, and even the price action, with these random 5, 6, 7% pops, and then it just goes straight back down. We're sort of in that
Look at
environment.
any higher time frame though, right? Like look at the 3-day, look at the 12-day, look at the monthly, look at the 3-month, and look at the yearly. See, people that say that you can't
Yes, the
go
three
to all these
month.
crazy, all the people that say you can't go to the crazy lows, they don't look at higher time frames. They're looking at the fucking 1 minute, the 4 hour, the 1 hour. People, and they just don't get it. Read higher time frames and go back on the chart like Wabi does, because Wabi actually goes back on charts and looks at like previous times. I don't even think a lot of people ever go back to like previous years, and that's something Wabi's good at. But like to anyone that's trading, look at higher time frames. That's always going to give you conviction. It's a lot easier to trade off a higher time frame to see more of what's went on in the history of an asset and what could potentially come.
Yeah, and like as far as the ETH weekly goes, man, because like I do recognize that Bitcoin and crypto are somewhat separate, um, but there is a case to be made given that there was a lot of like wrapped BTC, and also native BTC that was locked up to be used as collateral to gamble on DeFi, this, that, and the other, and if you look at the weekly structure, on I think what is it, Naka? Total 2, the Total 2 chart that tracks everything outside of BTC and stables.
Yeah, although
Maybe that's Total
you've got to
3.
be
Total
you got to
3.
be well, Total 2 includes ETH, Total 3 doesn't. You got to be careful with Total 2 though, because it includes the stable coins as well, so it's pretty
Yeah, yeah,
badly
yeah.
right now.
But
Um,
if you look at the weekly structure on ETH, it's pretty similar to the market structure that it had back in the summer of 2018, right? And there's a case to be made that this bear market could just end up chugging along and kind of like chop, 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 10% deviation to new lows, retest the previous low, chop, 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 new low. It could just be like that for the next 6 months until we have that glorious 3 to 4% CPI reading, which from the data that we've seen, as far as like the I think it's called like the Harpex shipping index, and other things coming from China and other parts of the world, like there's definitely a lot of data that is supporting deflationary cycle and also a housing bear. But all right, not to talk macroeconomics, because I'm not Jeff Winiger or anything like that. I'm just a student of the game. Um, there are a lot of cases to be made that come summer, spring of 2023, for your average individual. There's a case to be made that you could potentially start doing a slow twap. I'm not going to say TWAP, but like a small TWAP, starting in Q2, Q3 of next year when we're like a year out from the halving, because I do think the halving effect is going to occur. And yeah, I guess that's enough technical analysis talk from myself. If any of you guys want to bring something up when it pertains to BCC specificity, feel free to add to the conversation. Again, I'm King Wabi, presenting you the Bitcoin edition of Crypto World Radio, sponsored by Because Bitcoin, and we are joined by our friends Kayvon, Naka, Bando, Payne, Avid, D, Premise, Vestige, and we are speaking about BTC in general, whether it's its place in the monetary system, whether it's price action, um, things that are ongoing in development, things that have been developed, and I think we discussed early blockchain history from like 91 to 98, 2000, and also someone here brought up Hashcash. And these are topics that are barely touched upon. It's usually like Binance is going under, the situation with FTX. There aren't many there aren't many circles that are actually speaking on the development on BTC, and I definitely encourage people um, to do their research on the development going on within BTC, because it's definitely interesting. And I'll definitely be doing more of these like Bitcoin specific Twitter Spaces, given the amount of feedback that I've had. So I want to thank you guys again, and feel free to follow Because Bitcoin. I'll be doing all of my Twitter Spaces from there moving forward, as I have over the last 2 weeks. Follow, bell notifications, all that jazz. Go to our website. You'll see the links to our Discord and our YouTube channel. And if you guys want to get a replay from this space, feel free to go on our YouTube channel, subscribe, bell notifications. And just a heads up, even though this space is recorded, right, it will be taken down within the next like 12 hours. Our producer is not available at the moment, so I'm doing what I can on my end. But again, if you want to catch a replay of this space, um, check on our YouTube in 12 hours. But of course, after the space is concluded, you'll be able to hear bits and pieces of it, um, depending on where you are, whether it's like really late or really early. Yeah. Avid, go ahead. Excuse the
Yeah,
ramble, guys.
I was
Excuse the
just
ramble.
gonna, you were talking about developments, and I don't know if she's available to talk about this, but she mentioned some cool shit regarding splicing. Um, and that's something that's apparently a new thing. And so, D, I don't know if you feel like talking to that, or maybe we could go to someone else's question if she's not available. But some pretty cool things that enables. So, uh, anyways, that's one of those new.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, lots of stuff is happening. There's too much happening for any one person to really keep up with all of it. So I can't speak to everything that's happening, but splicing is an upgrade that is being implemented in Lightning. And what that will allow for is a lot of new applications to be developed or some efficiencies to be gained from existing applications. So what that means is if you have a Lightning channel with somebody, you have funds locked up in this essentially 2 of 2 multi-sig. And if you want to change the amount of funds that are locked up, you have to do an on-chain transaction to close that channel and then a second on-chain transaction to open a new one. And so a couple of things happen. You have to incur 2 on-chain transactions in addition to the one that you paid to open the channel. And then the other thing that happens is you're not going to be able to route any payments through that channel in the meantime. And splicing fixes this. Splicing gives you the ability to splice funds into a channel to make it bigger without disrupting routing in the meantime, or splice funds out of the channel to make it smaller without disrupting routing in the meantime. And it's kind of simple. It's kind of a simple upgrade, but it unlocks the ability to do all kinds of cool stuff like pay for on-chain transactions using your Lightning wallet. And I think there's probably a lot of really cool apps that can be built with that, where you simply just have a Lightning wallet on your phone and you can either send someone Lightning or you can send someone chain on-chain funds, up to you. And the other cool thing you can do with splicing is you can batch splices together. So if I want to splice in or out, I can add additional splices to that on-chain transaction to save funds. And then my peers can add additional transactions to that batch of transactions as well. And it's, yeah, pretty exciting.
Awesome. Thanks for
Well,
covering that. That's pretty cool.
Kayvon, go ahead, brother.
Hey, can you hear me? Okay, yeah. So since the beginning of the space, I was reading the BTC Pay server documentation, and I'm gonna give it another crack. So I'm gonna work on trying to accept Bitcoin at the restaurant this week and see if I can get it going. The thing for me is I need some sort of like point of sales type setup. Like, yeah, you can send, if you have 2 people with an app on their phone, you can send like Lightning transactions back and forth. But for my purpose, I need like the customer to see a barcode, an employee to be able to know what to do, and have something that's like confirms the transaction like in real time. It's so I'm going to work on that this week, and it looks like they've been working on it. BTC Pay servers, the GitHub looks pretty active, so it looks like those devs are hard at work, and I'll check back in future space, tell you guys what happened.
Thank you for that, brother. We can't wait for your exciting developments. Once again, if anyone here in the audience would like to request to speak, I'll bring you up and you can join our lovely conversation, joined by our amazing friends Naka, Payne, Bando, D, Vestige, and Avid. Is my show voice cool, guys? Was that cool? Was that good enough?
Fantastic.
It was
Thank
lovely.
you. Thank you, guys. I was actually on Jeff Winiger's space earlier today at around 5, and I'm trying to get up. I'll bring this guy up. Trying to see if we can get him on the show. He did mention how Wisdom Tree is going to be releasing some ETFs over the next 18 months, and it will be comprised of digital assets, including BTC. So that's an exciting development there for you guys. So I see we have Vatsal. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. How's your day going, brother?
So far, so good, buddy. Thanks a lot for letting me on the spaces. Cool. So I have a question. I've been hearing a lot of these spaces, a lot of spaces where Naka's been there. So a lot of education going on in here. A common mental model that I'm hearing from a lot of investors, both in crypto as well as traditional equity space, is everybody's expecting the first half of 2023 to be bad. So everybody's kind of, heavy in cash. Even on CNBC today, they were saying they did a survey of, most millionaires, and 90% of them said that they are ready with cash whenever the market goes down. If this is such an obvious thing that's going to happen in the next 6 months and everybody's ready, how come that's going to happen? And why aren't people going to front run each other? And this market is going to continue to, be flat for, I don't know, for the rest of 2023. I don't know if there's an
I think
opposite.
that comes in like the middle of the year next year. I everyone wants it to be like the first quarter of next year, but I just think that's too early.
Well, the other thing you have to remember is, it's not just ordinary individuals who are players in this market, right? There are large institutional players, governments, etc. Well, things that are almost as big as governments, and they are not necessarily calling in to CNBC and expressing their opinion, but they have huge amounts of assets under their management. So one of those is, the idea of the yield that you get by owning risk assets versus the yield that you get by owning bonds. I think I posted to my Twitter. I think I'll try and put it in the nest. The yield that you're getting right now from holding Apple shares is less than the yield you get by just holding bonds. And that hasn't been true for a very long time, right? So that means that these large institutional investors like pension funds are going to reallocate out of risk like Apple or Tesla and into bonds, right?
Mhm.
And, they're not going to call into CNBC and tell you that they're doing that, but they're going to do it. And they have extraordinarily deep pockets. They're moving trillions, right? They don't, like, a millionaire is like a millionth of what they have,
But a
right?
lot of analysts and bankers right now are saying to go into bonds, and big bankers are saying go into bonds. I mean, that technically
Yeah,
benefits
right.
them, though. That's what they want.
Right, but I mean, like, bonds are yielding a lot, right? The government is, the U.S. government is paying you a good yield, like 4%, to do something with no risk, right? Whereas Apple is paying you less than that to take on all of Apple's execution risk, right? So Apple could, there could be a scandal, there could be like some supply chain disruption. Who knows what the fuck could happen to them, right? But you're getting less from Apple than you're getting from the government, the US government, which is risk free if you're a US citizen, because they if the US government doesn't pay on its bonds, that's it. That's, you're Mad Max, right? So the fact that we're in this situation where Apple is yielding less than bonds is something that hasn't happened. I don't think it's happened in the last 10 years, right? So of course it's going to do things that people are not used to, like all the risk assets getting completely destroyed. And then everyone's like, oh, but everyone was so bearish. How come it went down? Well, yeah, but, I mean, maybe all the individual investors were bearish, but, these large players, these sort of monsters are kind of allocating trillions of dollars, and your $1,000 that you want to put into Tesla is not really a big deal to them, right?
And what are
Naka,
what?
would you
Sorry, please go ahead.
go ahead, brother. Go
I,
ahead,
I I
man.
was
Go
just
ahead.
I was just gonna say, and please excuse me if I'm asking, naive questions, but like I'm an average investor, trying to make sure that I put my
Yo,
capital to the
nothing's
best.
naive, man. That's why we're all here to learn.
Right. So, in your opinion, one, what is stopping these, multi-billion, trillion-dollar asset management firms to front run the market right now? If it's going to crash to, I don't know, 3200 S&P, maybe even 3000 S&P, worst case scenario, why aren't they selling right now? Why are they waiting for Q1, Q2 to move their money?
Like,
Some of them are underwater.
and they also just can't, flip 100% short or flip 100% cash. Like based on their client needs, they do have to also sometimes, hold some spot, right? Even though like their personal holdings, as far as backstopping
And
liquidations go. Go ahead.
I think, yeah, I think there are rules for these large asset allocators have rules saying they are not allowed to hold cash, right? So this makes them very different than individual investors. So they either have to be in risk or they have to be in bonds, right? They can't be in cash. So if they buy into bonds at the wrong point in time, they'll get wrecked on that. So I think there's some issue where they basically need to time the top of bond yields and get in there. And in addition, I don't like, although these guys are moving huge amounts of money, they're not necessarily actually very good, right? Because it's not their money, it's somebody else's money, right? Like it's your grandma's money. Like that's what a pension fund is, right?
and they'll take different risks to someone else's money as well too, right? Like I'm sure they've got their funds in a lot
Yeah.
more safer assets, and they're paying more closer attention to theirs. I mean, they're gambling with other people's money to a sense. I mean, not wrong with that.
Exactly. Yeah. So, these pension funds I mean, like the Ontario, what was it? The Ontario Teachers Pension Fund was balls deep in
That's
FTX.
crazy, dude. That's honestly
Bro,
insane.
that was embarrassing what happened here. I'm very embarrassed about that.
So these guys are moving a lot of money, but they're not necessarily very smart, right? I mean, they're obviously not going to do anything stupid, but I think they're kind of very risk averse in the sense that they'll invest. So the reason so I know a little bit about this specific case. The
You also got
reason
to know what kickbacks they're getting as well too.
yeah,
People are
kickbacks
paying
too,
them
right?
to put money
So
into.
right, so there's a principal agent problem here. The people making the decisions are not the people whose money it is. There can be sort of fraud, but like the Ontario Teachers Pension Fund invested in FTX equity instead of in Bitcoin because they'd done years of research on the digital asset market and they decided that it was safer to invest in the exchanges than to invest in digital assets because it's like they didn't know which digital asset to buy or they were worried about how they were going to store it. So they were like, why don't we just do the safe thing, safe in quotes, and buy FTX, right? We'll buy FTX equity because that's like a traditional equity investment. We're used to doing that. We don't have to get into this new crypto stuff and worry about how we'd secure it and how to have a multi-sig or anything like that, right? And, it's kind of like something where we can use our existing compliance process for it, right? So they went and asked FTX some questions and FTX kind of lied to them, but they could like tick the boxes and stuff. So, these guys are like kind of stupid, right? But they manage trillions of dollars. So you have these sort of, the game that you're really playing, imagine it like this. Imagine you're like a tiny little mammal, you're like a little squirrel that's running around on the ground, and there are these really fucking retarded dinosaurs that are drunk, that are like lumbering around and knocking trees over, right? That's those big pension funds. And yeah, they're going to do stupid things. They're going to throw themselves off the cliff. You better not be on the ground underneath the cliff when the pension fund throws itself off, right? And it's like, oh shit, we're in Tesla and Tesla's down. Sell it all. And then just like fucking huge red candle, right?
They usually
So
sell the bottom, dude. Like they're the ones that
right, yeah. Right, and
which
the
is
thing
the
is, even if
craziest thing ever.
but even if they're not that stupid, if you're managing a huge amount of money, it actually makes trading harder because the market's always moving against you if you're big, right? Whatever you're trying to do, if you're trying to sell, right, the market will start going down and making your sell price worse. If you're trying to buy, the market will start going up and making your buy price higher. So these guys are kind of always getting wrecked, losing money from your grandma, and then they still get paid their salary anyway. So I think you have to be a bit careful, especially in trad markets, trying to be contrarian and be like, oh, everyone's so bearish it has to go up. No, there's some pension fund is just going to do this, right? They're selling equity. They're going to sell the red candles and they're going to buy into bonds because that's what their risk management procedure says for them to do, right? And if you try and stand in front of that, you're just going to get run over by a freight train.
Guys, I do want to propose this. Is there a case to be made for something like Bitcoin bonds? I know El Salvador wanted to do a few things regards to that, but does anybody on here know how to explain it in a concise manner?
I mean, I think I
don't.
Oh,
I
go
don't.
ahead.
But from what I understand, like it's not their. Something to do with like the energy infrastructure in the volcano, right? It's they call them like volcano bonds. So basically, it's to me, and I don't know the details here, but it seems like like a surface level investment in the mining infrastructure slash free green energy that they have there that they're monetizing through Bitcoin mining. But that's just a high level assumption that I'm making.
Well,
Well, I mean, so a bond is basically when a government wants to borrow money, right? So I think what they're basically doing is they're saying, look, you lend us $100, right, and we will pay you back the initial $100 plus a yield after a certain amount of time, right? That's what a bond is. And what makes it a Bitcoin bond, I think, is El Salvador is using that $100 that you paid them to buy mining equipment, right? So they're mining using geothermal energy or something, right? And then the idea is, they're going to invest your $100 into that equipment, and that's going to make a profit, and they're going to use some of that profit to pay you back your original principal plus the yield.
thank you for that, Naka. Thank you. We learned about bonds today. I appreciate you, man. That's the first time someone has explained that without
That's it,
putting me
bro.
to sleep.
That's without putting you to sleep. Fuck me, I'm on a
Yeah.
roll. I've
Yeah.
fudded Bitcoin, and I've explained bonds. There we go. I
Yeah,
can
I think
die a happy
today,
man now.
Dude,
I think
every time I hear bonds, I just I swear,
yeah,
dude. I think it's called
like berry bonds,
narcolepsy.
dude. Are we
It
talking
just
berry
comes over
bonds?
me, bro. Just the narcolepsy, and I just tank out, bro. I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know what it
Because
is.
Well,
bonds, bro.
yeah,
Because
dude.
bond.
Yeah,
The, th-
right.
the thing is basically, look, all a bond is just somebody going into debt, but that somebody is like the government, right? So the government says, I want you to give me $100, right? Because I need to
And the
spend, right?
government wants you to buy into that shit. Like I don't buy into that stuff. I
Yeah,
don't believe it, man. I take my risks to risk on markets and a few other type of things, but I just don't believe them.
Yeah,
And
I'd rather
you know,
50x long
yeah,
ApeCoin.
but I mean the reason. So the reason that you have to. So here's the reason why you should buy bonds, right? Because when the government says, "Look, I want you to lend me $100, and I promise to pay you back," if it's your buddy Steve who asks for $100, he might not pay you back. But Steve doesn't have the dollar printing machine, whereas the government does. So the government, kind of like the U.S. government, kind of like is basically guaranteed to pay you back, right? So if the government says, "Lend me $100 now, I'll give you $110 in 2 years," right? That's guaranteed 10%. And the thing is, if everyone has that option to get that, then they all pull their money out of risk assets and just do that, right? And so if you try to be the contrarian and go into risk assets, well, you just get wrecked because all the risk assets are getting deflated like a balloon at the end of the party, right? And that's basically what's happening now.
All right. So with that being said, I think it's a good time to wrap up. We've been on air for almost 2 hours now. I want to thank all of you in the audience once again for tuning in. I want to thank our speaker panel. Thank you, Kayvon. Thank you, Naka. Thank you, Bando, Feel Pain, Vestige, Avid. Thank you, Vatsal, for tuning in. I want to welcome you to the Because Bitcoin community. If you want to go ahead and join our Discord, guys, the link is up on top. And if you want to see a replay of the space, along with our earlier shows like Market Talk, and also the show that I had earlier today with an individual that's very experienced within the venture capital space when it pertains to digital assets. Feel free to go to our YouTube, subscribe, like, comment, turn on bell notifications, leave some feedback. Could be any feedback. Could be, Wabi, your voice is annoying and you ramble too much, right? Go on like the daily news anchor show on the evening time, right? Be a radio host, go do something else, but your voice makes my ears bleed. You can even put that. I welcome all feedback. And yeah, feel free, guys, to check out the Because Bitcoin website, where you can be consistently updated with news articles from our boy Valentine. And just a reminder, I will be producing daily articles on the site when we enter the new year. When it pertains to developments going on in the crypto market, and also a weekly YouTube video where I'll be just breaking down the week's events. So, look forward to the Wabi docs, and hopefully that makes the bear market conclude to a swift haste. I want to thank you guys again. It really means a lot. Thank you for showing up for another episode within the same day. It really means a lot to me, guys. Thank you for showing up, always giving me some sort of feedback. And yeah, feel
Yo, and
free
shout out to all the
to,
listeners and shout out to all the speakers.
yeah,
Enjoy the banter. The banter's always good.
yeah, man, we should definitely do more BTC specific spaces. Max was the one that actually recommended the name for the space today because I was just gonna call it, Bitcoin Talk, but he really likes what I'm doing here when it pertains to crypto world radio. Kind of has like a nice catch to it, so I'll be going with that, and then putting like Bitcoin Edition Part 1, Part 2, or Bitcoin Talk Part 1, Part 2, something like that. We'll play it by the ear, but I'm definitely going to be doing out of the 5 spaces that I do throughout the week, I'm going to be having at least 2 of them be more like Bitcoin specific. So, yeah, guys, just a reminder, I will be doing all of my crypto specific spaces through the Because Bitcoin Twitter page. So please follow them and turn on bell notifications so that you are made aware of the spaces from myself and also Carter. And yeah, thank you guys. Any closing thoughts before I rug the space? Kayvon, last thoughts?
All
Good
good, man.
evening.
Great space. It's great to be here. It's kind of in and out at work, but glad to be here. Awesome
Yeah,
space.
appreciate the discussion. It's good to have the debate. Like I said, enjoy having interesting thought experiments, and good to hear everyone's opinion and kind of debate this stuff without it getting hostile. So thanks, Naka. It was good to have some more mining discussion, and
Appreciate
we'll continue this next time.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, guys, man. The
100%.
banter, both directions. It's enjoyable to talk with everyone, whatever our opinion is, and then it's always good conversation.
Knock, any last thoughts?
I think Bitcoin is eventually going to agree with me, and they're going to do tail missions. You heard it here first.
Pain,
Eventually, they're going to do it.
Pain, any last thoughts?
Nah, man. It was a great space as usual, and I appreciate all the speakers coming up. It's great to talk to everyone.
Bando, any last thoughts?
Last thoughts: under 12 to 10K is 3.8K.
Vatsal, would you like
I
Hold
to
my
agree
add
breath.
with that,
any?
bro.
Vatsal, would you like to add any last thoughts before I conclude the space?
Quick poll: what's the probability of a Fed put in 2023?
100%.
50-50?
I heard this from Hillary Clinton actually.
I think it's
Depends on what you
100%.
That's right.
depends on what you think.
Zero.
Depends on what you think a put is. Like
Yeah, don't bet your money on it.
there's not even an agreement on what a put is. You got half the people saying, the Fed's going to pivot if he stops raising rates.
The Fed
Go ahead.
the Fed put is Jerome is going to put his in your.
I think I think Naka, Jerome Powell has done enough. He raised rates.
That's the only Fed put you're going to get.
Naka, if you remember, you put something like J Powell giveth, J Powell taketh,
Yeah,
and literally, like, all he did was wake up one day
take it.
and he's like, you know what, man, I feel like a 75 out of 100. So you want to know what happens, bro, when Jerome Powell only feels 75% of 100%, dude? He wakes up and he's like, good morning, it's time to raise rates by 75. I just love waking up and raising rates by 75. As a matter of fact, I grab coffee and I want to raise rates by 75. How I love raising rates by 75. You get a 75 basis point raise. You get a 75 basis point raise. It got to a point where I think the University of Notre Dame actually wanted to contact him to be the quarterback, and they made him a jersey, right? So the jersey says 75 BPS on the back and then Powell on the front. And the people who made the Trump NFT collection are actually going to make 75 unique PFP collections based off of Jerome Powell's likeness. You know, you're going to have the little money printer thing. You're going to have that thing he does
I
with his
put those bad boys up in the nest.
yo, you're gonna have Jerome Powell doing that thing where he kind of lowers his glasses and does the "what are you talking about" face. So
He has the
yeah,
rock face, bro.
Jerome Powell NFTs built on the Bitcoin blockchain. I look forward to that narrative in the next 10 years, right? So that's a joke, guys, by the way. So thanks, guys. Thank you so much. It means the world to me that you guys show me love and all that. So I'll see you guys on the next one, which is tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern time, and I will be having Garlam Wan as a special guest. He is the CEO and founder of the Momentum 6 Venture Fund, and I will see you guys there. Hope for a good
Yeah, I'll catch you guys
conversation.
later.
Later, guys. Take care.
The trading current is just math. It's just math. It has a 95.45% hit rate when we deviate outside of CP2 and CN2. All you had to do is recognize that 95% of the time when we get over here, under this blue line, we get some sort of mean reversion. So let's just assume you long right here. 95 out of 100 times, when I buy this, I'm going to get some sort of bounce. It's just math. Look what would have happened as we move up. Look at the bounce that came after. And now look where we are. If you had just blindly followed the current, you take all emotions out of it, you say, I'm going to trust the statisticians. You would have bought Dow Jones somewhere down here under 30,000, depending on how you want to measure it from absolute top to bottom, 20% move. We also have multi-time frame alerts. You don't even have to be at your computer on TradingView. You can ping your phone. Now, the current has some really awesome features, and I would urge you guys to join our Discord to get access to it. We give it away for free as a tool to the community. It's just math. There's really no need to overcomplicate things, not even in the slightest.